Do you need any more help?
Hello.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lag on that.
I see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be probably loud.
Do you want that the other way?
But then I went to Concordia and Moorhead too, so and then our career kind of took us all over, and we've been back for 4 years now. But,
Oh, sweet.
yeah,
That's nice.
but
Are they getting flooding up there?
boy, they've had a lot of snow. Not really firm or anything, but I don't Fargo. I don't know. Every year.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Great.
This is my liquor.
Have you seen that one before? Do you remember that one? Yeah, kind of. Uh-oh. Not sure.
Man, what happened to your knee?
I just wiped out before I came in.
Oh no.
I thought it hurt. Yeah. I went down.
Slippery like ice.
Well, it was like a thing. It's not as good as it out. It looks like
In front of people. Everything.
bad.
How have you been? Yeah. Great. Yeah, really happy. It's awesome. Yeah. Able to kind of do the show that we want to do, you know.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, we have Cory Hepola with us today. And Cory, there's been a lot of talk about college this week. Are you on?
I think so. Am I on? Is it green? It's green.
All right.
Is that it? Check, check,
I
check,
think
check,
it
check, 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 check.
There we go.
There we go.
So, Cory, I'm leading into this. Cory, there's been a lot of talk about college this week.
Yeah, I got into Concordia on my own merits.
Really?
Yeah, there's no family paying for me to get in there. I got in on my own GPA.
A lot of people tried to get in there.
There we go.
Very
Yeah.
prestigious college.
Concordia Moorhead.
That's right.
Yeah, Cobbers.
Yeah, it's a little call out for the Cobbers today.
Yeah.
Cory is a broadcaster. He is a marketer. Some might say a marketing genius. You're a pretty good marketer.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
not a genius.
Well,
I'm trying.
You're
I'm trying.
a good marketer, which is what today is kind of all about.
Yeah.
So Cory worked at, we know him from Care 11, doing some anchoring and some reporting.
Yep, with my wife, who's here today too, Camille. Yep.
Yay, Camille. We
Yay. Yeah.
we miss Camille too. From Care 11,
Mm-hmm.
you want to tell the story. Where are you now?
I'm at WCCO Radio now. I have my own show, 9 to noon, every day, so Monday through Friday. And it's great. It's called Hey, It's Cory, Hepola. And I think fundamentally it's built on, we say we want to inform and we want to inspire. So it's fundamentally, it's built on positivity. And I think our world has gotten too separated, and I think we keep being divided, and it's a very divisive time in our country, and I'm just not like that. And I thought we need a voice that's a uniter and somebody that's going to also talk about, I mean, this is a great state in a great community, and there's a lot of good happening here. So why can't we talk about those things? And so that's kind of our goal, is to be that positive, inspiring, uplifting voice.
So some of us, like Mike Dale and I, we listen to WCCO a lot. Ann says, man, I haven't listened to WCCO and since Bill Deal was there. So tell us about that transition, because I would say some people probably asked you about that.
Yeah, so we're in kind of a transition with WCCO Radio as well. We're trying to basically engage with all ages too. So it's not just older demographics. It's not just younger demographics. And I think that's a part of my job, and something I take great pride in is that, like, as an uplifting, inspiring voice, I'm somebody that can connect with a lot of different people. And the other thing too with our show is it's not just built on, like, okay, we're going to talk about one subject for 3 hours and we're going to argue about it. And it's not like that. We're going to hit on a number of different topics throughout the day. Our pillars are well, what's happening, but also what's happening in our community. And we've got sports, and we've got education, and we've got medical breakthroughs, and we've got technology. And so there's a lot of things that are happening right here, and we're hitting on all of them every day.
So for some of us, we've had a lot of rejections in our life. A lot of different times we've been disappointed. And that has happened with you as well. And you talk about that.
I do. I think it's important, especially for kids, to understand that, even when you're a Christian, that life is not some straight, easy path. Just being a Christian doesn't mean that everything's going to come easy. And I mean, I look at in my career, and one thing I really stress with kids is that, we all see the finished product, right? People see me on Care 11 and they think, wow, I've won a couple Emmys. Wow, that's great. And so everyone sees that part of it. But what they don't see is they don't see the fact that, I was rejected by 350 TV stations.
350?
And you don't have to rub it in.
Okay.
Laid off twice. My last layoff, the company fell apart, and so I was without a job. But we were working in Houston and looking for a job, not just any job, but a job. And I was being very proactive, and we wanted to come home to Minnesota and Minneapolis, and I reached out to the stations here and just said, hey, I will fly myself up there. All I'm asking for is 15 minutes of time, and I can do an audition, and I can prove that I should be somebody that's worthy of a spot here. And I was literally told by one in particular that said, don't waste your time. There's no way you're not good enough to work in this market. And that's tough to hear that stuff, and which also made it sweeter than 18 months later after Care hired me when I won Most Outstanding Anchor for a 5-state region. But it's like, I think it's really important with kids to understand that, like, the perseverance, and to, it's not a failure unless you allow it to be a failure and you let it knock you down and say, well, I guess I can't do that. I had I had a great lesson when I was in 8th grade, actually. First of all, I'm from...
Rewind back to 8th grade.
Yeah. But it was completely, and I know, and it was a completely life-changing moment for me, and one that I can remember where I was, I can remember who I was talking to, I can remember it so vividly. First of all, I'm from Perham. Go Jackets. We're going to state again in basketball, baby. Last night. Yeah, so they'll be down here in boys basketball.
Barrel of fun.
Yeah, KLN and Barrel of Fun, and yeah, great business in Perham. It really is. It's a thriving small community, and very proud to be from Perham. The community is just wonderful and has been so supportive of us along our journey as well. So when I was in 8th grade, I was cut from the basketball team, and didn't expect it. I was very upset, and I thought it was like their fault, right? The coaches made a mistake. It was their fault. They were wrong, and I went and talked to the coach, and I was basically ready to say, like, this should not have happened, and not because of your work ethic and your attitude. And that was just like, I remember where I was sitting. And I just broke down. I mean, I was embarrassed, absolutely embarrassed. And I let myself down. I let my family down just by acting that way. And from that day on, I said, I will never let that happen ever in my entire life in anything I choose to do. I'll never be outworked. I'll, make sure that I have that positive attitude in anything that I attack. And so that was really a life-changing moment for me. And what really made it cool was that, like, 9th grade, I made the team. 10th grade, I was moved up and on the varsity. And 11th grade, I was a starter. And 12th grade, I was not only the team MVP, but the whole region named MVP. And it was the first time anyone from Perham had done that. And so it was really, when I talk about it, I kind of get emotional because of, it proved that, like, work ethic, positivity, being positive, affecting others, and just being that community and team leader, that's what's really important.
He really did you a favor.
He did, and my parents too. Like, I think a lot of times parents they can go to, you want to stick up for your kid, right? You want to know, like, hey, they got it wrong. My parents were not like that. They said, no, your coaches are right. And they didn't baby me or anything like that, and that really helped too.
8th grade.
Yeah, and so then it affected everything I did, and I went to Concordia College in Moorhead, Yale of the Midwest.
Yep,
And,
elite.
And I went there and love it, and so we went there and. I knew what I wanted to do professionally since 8 years old. I only had one goal, and it was to be down here in the Twin Cities as an anchor, and that was it. And so I went to college with that purpose, and went through and got involved there, and got internships in the Fargo market, and went through, and it was great. And I think it's even kind of silly now. When I look back, I was like, I was asked, well, what's your backup plan? And I was almost like annoyed by the question. I'm like, what are you talking about? Backup? I had no backup plan. Nothing. Like, this was all I was ever going to do. And I interned for the CBS station there. They ended up hiring me back, and I got a great opportunity, and I was anchoring weekend sports there at 21, still going to college. And I was like, that's going to be great. I'll just work here until...
I'm here.
Yeah, until I'm ready for Minneapolis. But then... ownership changed, and me and a bunch of we were laid off. And so I didn't really understand it, and I was pretty angry, and it was kind of embarrassing for me too. Just, my family and friends could all watch, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he doesn't have a job. And I think part of that's being immature too. Like, when you're 21, you don't understand the big business side of it either. But still, it hurt, and I didn't know if I'd ever get another job in the industry that I was passionate about, and I worked at a job and sent out resume after resume after resume, and 150 resumes later, I ended up in Helena, Montana. And then from there, same thing. After 2.5 years, I knew I wanted to move up in our career, and kept applying and applying and applying, and it's about 120 or so rejections before I finally got another opportunity.
Now, Helena must have been kind of small.
It's very small. Yeah, so if you go...
Smaller than Fargo.
If you go... There's 210 TV markets in the country. So if you go, on size. Number 1 would be New York City, right? Because it's the biggest. And then Minneapolis is like 15. Helen, Montana is 205. So it's pretty small. And but the greatest people, and just
Right.
awesome. And I really learned and grew, and still have friends that I made from there too. But knew I wanted to continue to grow in my career, and ended up in a basically kind of a lateral move in another really, really small market in upstate New York. And it was a really difficult situation. This was the 4th move I'd had all by myself. Just, I didn't have anyone with me in 3 years. So picking up and moving by yourself, and it's hard. It's really hard. And then I was at a station that had a lot of work to do, and so it was a very difficult situation. But then I saw on the other station this gorgeous anchor, and I was like, I should really meet her. And it was Camille. But she turned me down 3 times before she actually said yes to a date. So the whole lesson here is perseverance, right? Like, job, Camille, like it just it's kind of been the story of my life, I guess.
You hear the coach saying, "Yeah, you got to work harder. You got to work
Exact-
harder." Let's see,
Yeah.
what could I do to
I
get
know.
Camille to say?
I got creative. I did get creative. After that first email I sent her, I thought maybe I should do this a better way.
Very personal.
Yeah. But then we started dating, and then our careers kind of took us elsewhere. I had another opportunity. It took me a while, a few more rejections, but then I got an opportunity a couple hours away. She was still there. We did that for a year and a half, and then she got a job in Austin, Texas. And so we were in New York to Austin for a year and a half, and then I got a job in Austin. We got engaged right before that. I got a job in Austin, and we were married 6 months later, and then Houston, and then we got to Minneapolis here. But one thing that I'm very thankful for is Camille's. Her faith matches my own, and that was always something that was very important to us. And as we look back, we're best friends, and that's because of that long distance that we had. Because all you have is each other and our talks and
Right.
long talks, and I think our friendship really grew from that, and our faith always grew from that. And I think one of the messages that I really teach with kids too is that surround yourself with good people, people that want to see you succeed, that are going to be there for you, that'll help you along the way, and that will encourage you in your faith walk. And Camille's certainly been that for me, and I'm very thankful for that, because I know I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Camille, and I think she'd probably say the same thing, just because of the support that we've given each other. And there's been times where she sacrificed her own career for me, and I've done the same thing for her. And I think that's something that I'm really proud of, is that being able to balance that career with having a life too, and a partner along the way.
So one of the things that has followed you, as I mentioned, is the marketing. And how have you marketed yourself? How did you sort of come up with the Cory brand?
Well, it's still kind of it's interesting. In TV, you can only do so much.
Right.
And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to transition into radio and what we'll be doing digitally and stuff like that. And it's because things like this. Like, I felt like over the last 18 months, I'd kind of felt this strong pull from the Lord of you've got more to give. You've got more to give, and TV's been great, and I'm thankful for that. And Care 11 is awesome. We had a great thing going, and all the people there are wonderful. But it was I just internally I had this drive of more, and wanting to inspire more people. And in journalism, you can only do so much. You're kind of in your window, and you can't kind of get out of there. And I kind of felt like I'm being called to do more. I want to speak, and I want to help others and inspire others. And I feel like through my story, I can really do that. And so I think what I identified is that okay, so when we talk about branding, it's got to be authentic. People see through things that are fake. And so I'm okay, so we're authentic. So what's our show going to be built on? As we mentioned, it's going to be all those themes, but underlying it is the positivity and the faith. And we want to plant seeds. And you can't fake that. it's authentic and it's real, and I think people can see through when it's not. So that's kind of where it started. And so now, how do you get people to kind of like see what you're doing? I read this great book just actually a couple months ago, but I've been in the process of like identifying our core values, not only professionally but personally as well. So it's our core values. What do we stand for? What do we believe in? But then also too, like the vision for our show and what we're doing. So our show, 9 to noon, WCCO radio, but then we're going to add digital elements on YouTube, and then you've got all the social media outlets. So there's so many people that are in all these different spaces, and we want to be in all those different spaces. So it's a lot of work, but when you're authentic and you're true to your message and you don't stray from that, you're doing something right. And so we're kind of in the process of that. But I read a book that really kind of I felt was really empowering. Bye guys, bye.
It's been fun.
That's pretty good, actually. We got them for 20 minutes to kind of sit. But yeah, so the authenticity, and I read this book. It was really empowering just a couple of months ago, and it's called, it's not even new, and I can't believe I hadn't read it earlier, but it's called Strengths Finder. And many of you may have taken it, but so you read this book, it's only like 40 pages, but then you take this quiz, and it's a 35-minute quiz. And at the end of it, they say there's basically 35 fundamental themes with every character, every person. But they'll identify your top 5 strengths. And they basically say that like we spend too much time as humans focusing in on our weaknesses, where maybe we can only get that F weakness up to a C level. Well, why not focus in on our strengths and make those A pluses? And then identify, okay, what are our weaknesses, and surround ourselves with good people that can help uplift us in those areas. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was very empowering. And I took the quiz, and the 5 strengths, I mean, I even if I had picked out the book, I would have picked out those 5. Like, it was just amazing. And to read the synopsis, it truly was me. And I feel like it was very empowering. And to know, like, that's good. Like, those are good. Like, for the longest time, when I was going through this, you kind of get in this, you get in this world of, like, rejection, and you feel like you're not good enough, right? You feel like you're doing something wrong. And there's the longest time, I didn't want to share my story with anybody because I felt like it was a you know,
It was
a
commentary
sad
on me.
story.
Yeah, and it was a commentary on me, and I wasn't good enough. And it wasn't until I got back here home to Care 11, I was like, no, that's a part of the story. And that's the part that most people don't share, but it's the part that kids need to hear the most. And not even kids, I mean, anybody needs to hear, I think. You know, I'm 37, and I listen to inspiring speakers, and I feel uplifted, you know? So I think it's all good. But I think, to get back to the branding thing, I think we know what our core values are, and so we're just trying to find unique ways to get those core values across. And so for me, what do people identify with me here locally already? It's like, oh, it's the guy with the hair and the glasses, and like a lot of kids. So so we kind of,
And your dress, too.
you know, and dress, yeah.
Yep.
So it's kind of those things that
Not your dress. You didn't wear your
The
dress
way I
today.
dress, yeah.
But you will wear like a coral jacket or
Yeah. And I think being from Minnesota, people love Minnesotans, and I'm from Minnesota. I'm very proud to be from Minnesota, and you know, I was born here, raised here, schooled here, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. I think when you're vulnerable like that, and when you share those things, that's how we get closer to each other.
I agree. I think when people they hear that and they're like, oh man, you know, that's me too, and it's an identifiable trait. You know, it's a unique identifiable trait. I also feel like, you know, it's nothing that any of us should ever be ashamed of, because, I mean, those are the experiences like that are the ones that like prepare you for the next step. And I mean, I would have wanted to be in Minneapolis at 22 or 23, and I'm thankful I wasn't, because I wasn't ready. Now, that whole trip along the way prepared me, both personally and professionally, so that, and it's all the Lord's working, you know. I was like, now you're ready, and you're ready to positively impact people, but you weren't then. And I look back and I'm like, no, I wasn't. So I'm thankful for that. And I also think, like, it also creates this like unique perspective too, right? Like, everything that we go through gives us our own unique perspective. So, Yeah, I think
Yeah.
very thankful for that.
How do you, with your family especially, those kids are 4 and almost 3,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so how do you keep your work ethic going when you have a family?
I think for me, I've noticed I've been always been blessed with a lot of energy, a lot of natural energy, and but now we do focus in on like the small things. And I don't even, they're not even small things, but they can seem small. But like getting enough sleep ourselves at night, hydrating, eating right, like those things. Because I can tell when I'm not fully energized, and so those are some of the things because you want to be at. I like being at my best.
Right.
You want to be at your best each and every day. And so those are some of the things that we do. But, I mean, we're just faithful people. And we just, I think he's crying out there.
Yeah. Oh, so that brings me to the faith thing.
Yeah.
How do you keep your faith? I mean, your life is busy.
Yeah. I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Oh, that's just,
I think it's fine down there.
yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah.
Why do people clip them to themselves?
I think
Yeah.
We grew up in the church, so it's always been, deeply rooted in my heart, and I'm thankful for my parents to bringing me to church. And the first time I was public speaking, my parents signed me up to read the lessons when I was in 5th grade, and so I'd be nervous, and I'd practice during the week, but that really, they knew I had like the ambition to speak in front of people, and so that was my first experience doing it. And so it's just always been, but there are a couple things that I've always clung to as well. Like when I was laid off the second time, I was really having a hard time. And I was laid off 3 weeks before Cormac was born. And it's like, how am I supposed to, support our family? And not only that, but then it had been like a dream come true to get to that level. And now I don't know if I'm ever going to get another shot. So it's hard, but Camille told me, she's like, you can't control everything that happens in our lives, but you can control your outlook, and you can control your happiness. And that really hit me hard, and I still think about that pretty much every day. Like, even if I'm having a bad day, I'm like, well, wait a second, life is good, like, we can control our outlook. I did find this, which I have a note in my phone with all, like, Bible verses that are inspiring to me, but during that time, I stumbled across this one that is really, it's one that I really love, and it's Romans 5. But we also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us because God has poured out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit, whom he has given us. And I think that's a great one. Character is easy to have when life is good, but when life is difficult, how are we acting and how are we treating each other? And that one obviously always reminds me of a time when I was really searching and praying, just where are we going, what are we doing, and Lord, I don't know what's next. And what's funny is that at that time, as low as that was, it was also a beautiful time with the birth of our son. And as I look back, I could not have picked out a better path since that point than God picked for me. And so it's quite overwhelming, and humbling.
Well, I was wondering, because you can talk about how many times you've been disappointed or someone has sort of rejected you, but to have it really go into your heart, which is what that verse maybe kind of did for you, is because it does take its toll. Somewhere, we're people, and so it's going to affect us.
Yeah, and it just it's a path that I'm very thankful of, and I'm proud to share now, and also just the faith, and I think with our show, what we're building, we never want to be in your face with anything, and that's why, like, even on our show, where it's not outwardly talking about Christianity, but when it comes up, I'm not afraid to share it. And I think it's, for us, we never want to cut down trees. We want to plant seeds. And so that when people are ready and on their own time, they continue to search and look. And so that's our goal. That's
a really good way of putting it.
And the other one, too, that I do just a couple of things. I think we always, like a lot of people, when I was moving to CCO radio, a lot of people asked, well, what are you doing? Like I really was like at a point in my TV career where it was just taking off and things had gone really well. And we were at a spot, we're at a great station where they like us, and even in the community we're able to do things, and people were like, what are you doing? Like what? And I was kind of like, I just felt the pull, but I also feel like we can't be afraid of change, because change sometimes allows us to reach our full potential. There may be an opportunity out there that we're afraid of, but it's like, well, our full potential might be out there waiting. There may be something that we're being challenged to do, and if we're too afraid to take it on, well, then we're missing something too. And that's the way I kind of felt. I'm like, I just knew it. I just knew in my heart that this was the right thing to do because of a number of things. And the other part of it was too, this one from Galatians 6, let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. And that's something that I think defines kind of our career path, and we're seeing it now, and we hope that we continue to inspire people along the path, and along with the show and the digital stuff, but it's the public speaking and the engagements and being out in the community and helping and serving, and I think those are the other pillars that we're working towards too, and hopefully a year from now I come back and we have even more people here, and then the next year after that too. So,
You guys have some questions for him?
In today's age of political correctness, do you ever get warned not to share your faith on the air because you might offend somebody?
It's so it is difficult. It is difficult, and I think it goes back to that wanting to plant seeds and not cut down trees too, because I never want to be. And actually, even before we go to Lord of Life Lutheran in Maple Grove, and before I started, I met with our pastor and talked to him about like these are our goals, and it's something I want to continue to do too, is just to stay focused in what we want to accomplish. But yeah, and we also want to be respectful of other faiths and denominations, and that's really important to me too. And I think just basically if people are loving each other, serving each other, and people are going to have different denominations and beliefs and all that, but I respect that. Like, and if you're loving and you're serving, that to me those are the qualities that Jesus taught. Like he was always teaching love and acceptance, and I think that's big. So yeah, it's difficult though, because I don't, I never want to be too much. But when a topic comes up, I'll dive into it, and say like personally, we have strong faith.
It's great. Cory, I'm Kathy Thunheimer. This is the second time I've heard you speak, and I think the last year, Jeri and I heard you at a Concordia women's event. You did a nice job. And what I want to do is not ask a question. I just want to encourage you to keep going. Yeah. You are clearly on a journey. God's calling you to different places. And I work with a lot of young people at Gustavus, and they are, 1/3 of my students last year had to take their tests in another room because of anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's not just at Gustavus, it's sweeping this country. I don't know if anybody caught the CBS morning show this morning about this young woman that committed suicide, and her family didn't see it. So your ability to, share your story you're just such a good role model for all of us, male, female, young, medium, old, whatever. But we need more people like you to dare to have the courage to do it. So just keep going.
That's very kind. Thank you. I think, thank you very much. That is something that we do with our show as well, is that, it's something I had kind of like pushed deep down, but like the anxiety thing, like there was before I met Camille, I had mentioned I was in a very difficult spot, and I really struggled with anxiety at that point. Like, first time in my life, like I was not myself. I was unhappy. In 4 moves in 3 years across the country all by yourself, this sense of loneliness, and it was really hard, and I was in a difficult spot, and I wasn't sure if I was going to, I had a really difficult boss, and I thought I might get fired, and it was just a really difficult time, and I was going through like panic, and, but I think you're right, it's when I speak with kids, I talk about that too. But I think for kids, just knowing that like it's okay, it's okay. And if you're feeling these things, it's okay to reach out to somebody. It doesn't make you less than. It doesn't make you weak. It's actually strength comes in identifying it and going to get help. And so thank you, and I'm glad you said that too, because that's very true.
I'm sorry I'm not familiar with your show, but you talk about it very inclusive. So you talk about our team or our show. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then secondly, what's your biggest surprise or most proudest moment of your show or topic that has come up?
It is, so I do say our show, although it is my show. WCCO has been unbelievable. They said, come on in, you have a blank slate, create the show you want to create. And so it literally has been all me, but that sounds kind of conceited. so I say our show. But I have a great team there, though, that we work on it together. And there are creative ideas coming from a number of different people every day. But the themes and where we're going and building, that was kind of my baby. That was kind of my creation. But I have a producer who's been unbelievable, Dave. I work with him every day. And then we have great program directors and John and Lindsay. And I will say, I love our VP. Her name's Shannon. And amazing leader. She's one of these leaders that instead of saying hey, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, she identifies the strengths of her team and uplifts them and empowers them. And she's done that for me. And to your point too, keep going. There are times where even when you're building something too, it seems overwhelming. It's like, oh man, we got a long way to go and a big mountain to climb. And there are days where you're like, I wish we were further down the road, but then I remind myself that, you know what, we're 2 months in, or 2.5 months in, and we're going to be further along in a year, and a year after that, and a year after that, and you're going to look back and say, wow, look at all these lives you've positively impacted. And at least that's God willing, the hope. So yeah, it is our show because there's a lot of creative voices that really help with it, and people that I'm really proud to work with. They're really talented people. But proudest moment, man, that's a good question. I think, as a career, I can tell you a couple of the proudest moments where I've won 2 Emmys for Outstanding Anchor. I think professionally those were, you don't get in the business to win those, but it was just, after all you've been through, it was kind of just felt good, and it felt like such a blessing. And, but just as cliche as it sounds, just working with some of these great people that I get to work with every day, and all along the way too. And I think some of the memories I'll never forget being able to anchor with Camille for 2 years, to anchor with your best friend and look over, and that was really special. And to be able to cover a Super Bowl in my home state at US Bank Stadium and be in the building for that, I'll never forget that either. Because I remember watching the first one in '92, thinking, I was 11, but thinking I want to.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I want to be.
I'm thinking of how old I was. And
if there's ever a Super Bowl in Minnesota, I want to be in that building, and so to be in that building was pretty amazing. Yeah, and I'm very thankful for every step along the way. So.
Go ahead, Ann.
So, first question, where do you keep your Emmys? Because people do weird things with their awards. And then secondly, to put on a daily show is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit what a typical week might look like.
Yeah. The Emmys, actually, we just got a shelf, and we've got it's just in our office above our desk, and so we've got a couple Emmys, and then pictures of Camille and I up, and a couple other things too. The Perm Focus has done a couple of articles on me, and so we've got those framed, and Twin Cities Business. I was on the cover of Twin Cities Business a couple years ago, actually March 2017, and as a game changer in local media. And so that was actually a highlight too, and I've got that framed up there. So that's pretty amazing. The Daily Show is, it's a constant. I'm of the belief if you ever say like I've got it figured out in any line of work, then you're probably going downhill. So we're constantly learning and evolving and trying to get better at everything. And that's obviously a big challenge. Is like, okay, so 3 hours every day, the content and where are we looking, and so it's kind of throughout the day, all day, but particularly at night. Then I'm like, okay, what are the stories that matter to people? What are people talking about? And then we want to hit on some of those themes, like pretty much, a lot of times every day we have a medical segment every day, and a lot of times we are talking about like, hey, we got to be aware, like kids are suffering from anxiety, and how do we help? And sometimes we have like, hey, here are just conversation starters to help with somebody. And so there's a lot of things that we look that'll find like, hey, do these match the themes of our show? And then in the morning we get in and we start going like, okay, here's where we're going. We block it out. We're going to talk about this here. So we've got it all blocked out by like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. But then there may be a topic we're like, okay, so how do we approach this topic? Like, how can we do that in a fun, creative way when maybe it's kind of boring to some people? Or so then we're, my producer Dave and I, Dave's super creative, so it's like, okay, how can we? So we bounce ideas off each other, and then he starts producing and getting in some of the audio clips, and then I'm just like writing and researching, and then all of a sudden it's 9 a.m. and you're out there. I'm running every day. I'm running it out there. It's kind of fun.
It's like having to be at your best in your job every single day.
Yeah, there are
Right?
segments where I'm like,
Did you have a-
I get done and I'm like, could I have done that better,
Yeah.
So. Oh, all the time. Yeah, we have a text line, and try not to read the text line a whole lot. But we want engagement, I think, and that's one of the things that we're doing with our show, too, is we're taking less callers, and it's kind of on purpose because lots of times the people who will call in, and this is a blanket statement, but like lots of times the people who will call in, it can get to be kind of ugly, and that's not the conversation I want to have. And so we'll do texting, and I mean, people can disagree with me or whatever, that's fine, but if they're talking hateful stuff, or they're talking like, that to me doesn't do any good for the conversation. That goes back into this divisive country. So it gives me a little bit more. I also think like younger people, we're going after all ages, and younger people, they text. They don't call. Like, I'm 37, I don't call anybody. Like, but I'll text people, and so that's kind of the train of thought there too. But yeah, you get that text line coming in, and they're like, they'll tease, or maybe not even tease. But I also realize too, like, there are a lot of people that really, really, really like what we're doing. A lot of people, and there may be a vocal few that don't, and that's okay. I mean, not everyone's going to like you as much as
Right.
as much as I think that the message is good for everyone. But you can't control everybody, and that's okay. But we'll just keep doing what we're doing and positively impacting lives and continue to grow.
Well, thank you. This
thank you.
time has gone quickly, and thank you for coming, Cory.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and maybe we can do it again.
Hopefully we'll do it again and have more people, like you said, next
Yeah.
year. All right.
Okay, thanks everyone.